Folks, today I thought I'd talk a little bit about what recently occurred, and that is the U.S. Olympic marathon trials. I had a chance to be up there in Atlanta and view the trials going on. It was a fantastic experience. I was posting videos and pictures and whatnot, and my friend Susie from I Run Things, and I will try and remember, got to point the right way, put a link to her page up there, said, oh, you should do a video. And initially I thought, well, maybe I can take some of the videos I took and the pictures and incorporate it into a video. But a couple things occurred. Number one, although I am sure there is software that allows me to seamlessly include in a video I'm making now other videos I took and still pictures and things like that, I apparently do not own that software. Plus, by this point in time, there are way better videos, way better pictures out there on YouTube and websites than I ever took, so you can certainly find some of those. But I thought I'd talk very briefly about what it was like being at the trials, and then some things I think that we can all learn from the marathon trials. So Atlanta Track Club did a great job. They had a course where the elites did this 8-mile section going back and forth 3 times, and then they finished up. So we got a chance to see all the elites as well as all the other runners a total of 6 times. So what happened is first they would come on the road one way going out, and then they would come back the other way. When they were on the other side of the road where I was, you're like, well, whatever is the other side of the road. I was standing on the curb. It was 2 lanes on each side, so 4 lanes altogether. So they're, what is that, 50 feet away or whatnot. But when they were coming back through, I mean, to some extent, if you want to, you could go out there, stick your hand out, say, hey, give me 5 and slap hands. In fact, a couple of people did that with non-elites that they knew. I don't think you'd actually do that with the elites. So you got a chance to see them really often and what was going on. What would happen is that just before the main pack would come through, and the main pack got more and more spread out as you went along, there'd be a couple police officers coming through on motorcycle, brushing people back, get back to the curb, keep it clear, etc. And then a little while later, you'd see a couple more police officers coming with the truck behind them that was the camera crew taking pictures, and then there'd be the block of people behind them. Now, the first time anybody came through, huge blocks of people. But as I said, as the race went on, that got more and more spread out. In fact, towards the end, it wasn't unusual to have a block coming from one way and having other runners coming from the other way because things got, really spread out as they did that. The only thing that I really wish is I wish I'd brought an iPad or something with me so I could stream it. It was really neat to see everything happening right there, but you had no idea what else was going on in the race. So, for example, early on, a guy by the name of Brian Schrader was leading with the men. I didn't know who that was. I'm going, who the heck is this guy? I'm trying to look it up on my phone. The website won't take any more hits. I can't get any history on the guy. I'm sure on TV they're talking about, well, that's Brian Schrader, and his marathon time is this. He's way beyond his means. Or actually, he could do really well. So it would have been interesting to hear more about what was going on than just seeing it at that brief moment in time. The course was, in the day, I should say, was really, really tough. The course, there weren't any really big, huge hills, but it was always up or always down. There was no flat spots at all, and the wind was brutal. How brutal was the wind? Well, the Atlanta Track Club was doing the personal fluids, personal hydration for all the 700, 800 runners that were in there. It was a mile long of tables. I didn't see it, but they said it was going to be a mile of tables. At one point in time, a wind gust was so strong it blew everything off the tables, and all the volunteers had to hustle and get the hydration back in time for the next pack to get through. But everybody I heard that was in the race, I talked about it later, just said the conditions were really brutal. The wind in particular was really, really tough for them. So what are some things that we can all learn, I think, from the marathon trials? Well, the first one is the marathon owes you nothing. Now, that's not my phrase. Peter Bromka wrote an article. If you go on to a search engine Google and put in Peter Bromka, Marathon Owes You Nothing, you'll pull up that article as well as many other good articles he's written. But the marathon doesn't owe you anything. So what does that mean? So Peter Bromka is a good example. He wanted to be running in those Olympic trials. He ran the California International Marathon this past December. You need 2:19 or better to qualify for the men. He ran 2:19:02. He missed it by 2 seconds. You know by this point in time probably that with the exception of Galen Rupp, none of the people that were favored to be in the top 3 for the men or the women were actually in the top 3. Some of them dropped out. Some of them had races that were just much worse than they thought. I think Jared Ward, everybody expected Jared Ward to be in the top 3. He just had a bad day. I want to say he was 22nd or something like that, but he was way back from where he thought. Now, for the elites, This is a big deal. I mean, they're thinking about the Olympic trials 4 years ahead of time. They are peaking specifically for this race. But when you look at the large number, really, the majority of the favorites really fell short of what they wanted to have happen. Sometimes there was errors in strategy. For the most part, though, it just wasn't their day on that day. So really, for all of us, it's the same type of a thing. No matter how much you train, no matter how much you're prepared, sometimes, especially in the marathon, but really with every race, it's just not going to be there. So what do you have to do from that? I'm pretty sure this was Jared Ward who said this. If not, he could have said this, that, yeah, it's really disappointing to not do as well as he hoped. But he's looked, and it turns out there's more races in the future. So this one's done. You got to get past that and get on to the next one. But remember, the marathon owes you nothing. You got to see what the day is going to bring you. Embrace the suck. Now, I've talked about embracing the suck before, and that's really all about it's going to get tough. Now, I will tell you, when the elites were coming through on that final of the 3 loops, at that point in time, I think they had about maybe 6 miles to go, so they're right around mile 20 or so. The elites still looked relatively relaxed, but you know that even though they're relaxed, there's a lot of pain inside. They're pushing and they're trying to give everything. I mean, the people that were in 4th place, which means they're alternates for the Olympics, they were seconds behind 3rd place. They're certainly giving everything. But I'll tell you, with everybody else, you could see a lot more of the pain. You could see, and well before the 20-mile mark, how hard they were gutting it out. And that goes all back to what I've said before, is that we tend to think that if we train hard enough, it's going to be easy, and that's not the case. We train harder to make ourselves faster. If you're really going to push and do a good job, you have to learn to embrace the suck, and that's something that they all did. Train for the race you will run. This was a very hilly course. I think you would be hard-pressed to find anybody who didn't train to run a hilly course. What they couldn't train for was the wind, because nobody knew that that was going to happen. But really with your race, it's about looking for any key races you have and saying, what is that course like? And then what can you do to prepare for that? If you live in an area that's hilly and you're going to go run, say, Chicago, which is very flat, you actually want to get some training on flat, because flat ground doesn't allow your muscles to ever get a break. Hilly running, you get a little bit of break of hamstrings, quads, depending upon your direction. But it really is important to train for the race that you will run if you want to have your best results. Now, this next one, I'm going to hold up a picture. It's actually from the Chicago Marathon a few years ago, but I think it's representative. I wish I had a way to figure out how to insert this in here, but I don't. But on the top are the elites, and at the point I took this picture, we were at the split. So this is about 13.1 miles or so into the marathon. Look at what their form looks like for the elites. Down below them are people that were about 2 hours in, meaning they were on pace to run right around a 4-hour marathon. Do you see any kind of difference in their form and technique? It's, of course, dramatically different. That was one thing that was so cool to watch in the trials, is you would have a pack of 100, 200 people come by, and their form is just really good. Their foot is not only landing underneath their knee on the front leg, it was actually slightly behind their knee. So they just got really, and big long stride behind. They just really, really look good. So it's all about, muscular imbalances and strength and flexibility, drills that you can do. But technique counts. I mean, there's a reason that these were some of the fastest marathoners in the United States, because they've got really good form. It's not just training, your form and technique counts. And then the final thing I think we can all learn is believe in yourself. There were, I think, on both the men's and the women's side, roughly 50 people that dropped out of the race. Now, sometimes they dropped out because, for example, Molly Huddle, Emily Sisson, some of them, they're saying, hey, you know what? I'm not making the Olympics for the marathon, but I can still make it for the 10K. I'm dropping out to save my legs because I can get back to training and try this again in the 10K. So some people made a decision to drop out because this is what they do for a living, and they've got their sights set on something else. But other people dropped out because, hamstring injuries, other issues that they just couldn't continue on. I got to go to a session that night that was sponsored by UCAN, and they brought up a bunch of their athletes that use UCAN. Some of them elites, but a lot of them, they're everyday runners, if you will, that had qualified for the trials. And there were 2 or 3 of them that had DNFs. So can you imagine the disappointment with qualifying for Olympic trials, and you get there and you DNF? But the message that they really all had is, You have to believe in yourself. They're disappointed that they didn't finish this key race, but that disappointment does not translate into I suck. This disappointment translates into I believe in myself. There's more races. This race is not defining me. I'm moving on to something else. And too often I'll have a bad race and that's it. Might as well never race again. I suck. That's awful. But you got to have your belief in yourself to say when it's not your day, because the marathon owes you nothing, that's okay, because I am a strong runner, I'm a competitor, and there's going to be another race.